Hey everyone, this is Britton here. Okay, so that's it. That is the Art of Raising Children for Greatness. I would highly recommend you read the books, but in this group we're going to talk about some of those principles. There was a question that was brought up a few days ago. This person has read both books, and they're reading this book, Education, and we talk about the importance of picking a career path or a passion early, like discovering your kid's passion. I don't want to say discover it, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I think you can actually pick it, but it's really important because the world is becoming so highly competitive, and we have now with globalism, you have Disney artists that are being brought in from Israel or I don't know, South America, all over the world. Hey Sharon, how you doing? Good to see you here. So you are now competing with, especially in some of these higher, real desirable jobs, professional athletes, let's say, which I talk about in the book, how you maybe not want to pursue that career path, but artists, professional athletes, musicians, stuff, you're competing with everybody in the world. And so if you discover your passion, let's say your kid decides, I want to dedicate my life to singing, I love singing, I want to be a professional singer, and you start at 20, you're just way behind the power curve. Unless you have super talent, it's really hard to get into that career field that late. We talk about I know a lot of, because I do jiu-jitsu and I've done MMA, you have a lot of people who want to be professional fighters and they decide this at 18 or 19 years old. It's just too late, especially for athletes. Your window of time physically is so short, and I know we're not supposed to say that. Kids can always follow their dreams and believe, and if they just work hard, but it's not true. If you discover your passion at 18, you're going to be going up against kids who have been passionate about fighting and jiu-jitsu since they were 3 years old, maybe. And there is a lot, it's a skill. It's not just a fight, it's a skill. It's a skill set. And that kid's got maybe 15 to 20 years on you. And he's working all day long on his skill, getting better and better and better, because he's super passionate at the highest level. How do you make up that deficit? You really can't. And so there's a huge advantage if you can discover your kid's passion early and start funneling that towards a career path. You don't have to pick a career, but you just have that in mind. And again, this doesn't mean it's the end of the world if your kid goes a different route or they can't go a different route, but you will lose some of that strategic advantage. So if you can start identifying a career path or a passion for your kid early, it's a huge strategic advantage. And so we're going to talk about that today. There's a lot of confusion how to do that. One of the things I talked about in the book is one of the advantages is raising your kids up in your own footsteps so that they can stand on your shoulders, I say. So if you are already a businessman and maybe you're a cattleman or something like that, maybe that's your family business, you have a tremendous strategic advantage over some city kid who decides he wants to raise cattle for a living. He has no access to cattle. He doesn't know a whole lot about cattle. He's probably not going to be able to get access to cattle until maybe he's 18 or 20 and can afford to buy a little ranch on his own. And so he's way behind the curve. But if you are already in a cattle family, it's so easy to just naturally bring your kids up in the family business. And they will be, that's a huge advantage. And we talk about Hollywood, the odds of your kid making it in Hollywood. Everybody wants to be a Hollywood actress or actor. The chances your kid making it there are almost zero. And mostly it's an inside job. A lot of those actors, you'll see that their kids are actors as well, and they just follow in the family footsteps. They have a huge advantage. So where I recommend most people just ignore that. It's such a hard career path. It's almost like winning the lottery, unless your parents are already in the industry. And then they can teach you, they can train you, they know the ropes, they know the shortcuts, they know who to talk to. You have an inside track. And so it's a huge advantage if your kids can follow in your footsteps. If you're already a professional artist, I think of oh gosh, that guy who wrote The Family Circus. Famous comic artist, right? His kids are both famous artists. Glenn Keane is probably outshined, that's the son. He's probably outshined his father, become one of the greatest Disney animators of all time. I don't think that's a coincidence. He was brought up in his father's footsteps. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I don't really have my dream job. I don't necessarily want my kids to grow up in that and pursue my career path. It's not something that I really enjoy or I would pick again. And if that's the case, then that's fine. You'll have to start fresh. But it's just something to consider. Your kids don't have to follow in your footsteps if you're not really thrilled about the way things have gone for you. If you want something different for them, then that's fine. Okay, so how do you discover your kid's passion, or how do you pick your kid's passion? And I do think it's worth debating whether you discover it or you pick it or you create it. And I talk about that in the book. So many times parents are just waiting for the kids to have this aha moment, and they think that the passion is somehow just deeply embedded in the child, and through time, if they're really careful, they'll discover it and it can come out and they'll follow the passion. And I say that's actually, I'm not sure if that's true or not. There's some to that. We probably have a personality bent and some hereditary skill sets, let's say maybe, that make us more prone to a certain passion. And so there is some truth to that. But a lot of times you'll find out that kids' passions are malleable. What are the odds that all of my kids would be passionate about chess? On their own. It's not all kids like chess. It's not every kid's passion. What are the odds that all my kids would be passionate about chess on their own? Probably very low. So why are my kids passionate about chess? Because it's a passion that I have, and it's a passion I picked for my kids. I introduced them to it early, and it's like it's part of our family culture. And so as the kids come up, they want to be a part of that culture. They're eager to play. They're eager to join the family. It's not our business, but the family passion of chess. So that's something that I picked for them. I don't think it's something that is inherent in them. There's other times you could make the opposite argument. I picked coding. I thought coding would be great for my daughters, all of my kids, and it goes with our family business. My oldest daughter, I picked chess for her at an early age, and she's been passionate. She's become a state champion. I tried to pick coding for her. I really wanted it, especially as a girl, because girls are not as interested in coding generally. There's a lot of opportunities for girl coders, female coders. All these really progressive companies trying to promote equality, they are looking for female coders. So if you're a female coder, the competition isn't as high. You'll have a job waiting for you. So I really wanted to get my daughter into that. I really pushed it when she was young, before she hit puberty and kind of the female hormones really kicked in. Let's say she was interested in coding. She was really good at math, really passionate about all that stuff. And so I thought, this is perfect. This is awesome. It's her passion. And then all of a sudden she like turned 12 or 11, 12, and suddenly it became a grind. She didn't necessarily like coding. She's very much into art. And so even though I wanted that for her, I kind of had to let that go. So it's not perfectly that you can pick this for your kids, but we look at all of those strategic advantages and we're working with those. So there's no perfect way to pick a career or a passion for kids, if that makes sense. But you do have a lot of influence. I influence my kids with chess. My boys are coding. They love coding, and that isn't something that they discovered. It's something that I encourage them in. And it might be that there is something to gender, where my two daughters, well, actually my younger one's still interested. We'll see what happens when she hits puberty. But there might be something to that for whatever reason, a lot of girls just don't like coding. But so there's that balance. You can introduce it, but you also have these internal passions that we have to kind of match up. And that's the goal, is to strategically match them up. Okay, the next thing. There are a lot of false passions that parents are looking for. They think it's internal. They're waiting for it to come out. And there's two major false passions that come out, and that's peers, and then there's play. And what happens with peers is peer pressure. You put your kids into the public school system, they get in with some friends, and all of a sudden they're super passionate about this. And then their friends progress and change, and then they're really passionate about this. And if you latch on to every one of those false readings, it's going to be really frustrating, and you're going to be constantly changing passions or career paths for your kids. Let me give you an example. When I was younger, we watched the Olympics. It was really exciting, and figure skating when I was a kid was super popular. Everybody was interested in it, or maybe my family was or something. But after watching that, was so inspired. I wanted to be a figure skater, and I started rollerblading all the time. And that I was super passionate, super motivated. Thank God my mom was just like, cool, and didn't get on board and didn't sign me up for classes, because that passion died out in a few months. The same thing happened with soccer. When I was really little, all the kids were playing soccer. So I love soccer. I was super passionate about soccer. I got signed up for the soccer team. And I thought I was really passionate. I thought I wanted to be a professional soccer player. And then all of a sudden we go to middle school. They didn't have a soccer team. And it was just like suddenly all my peers were doing different sports and stuff. And I just lost my passion for soccer. And I actually joined the wrestling team. Okay. My girls can't stand coding, laugh out loud. I know, it's so sad. It's the same with chess, and sometimes we try so hard to raise our girls equally. We forget that gender does play a role in it, even though that's not politically correct to say anymore. And it's the same with chess. A lot of girls are really passionate about chess until they hit puberty. And that's just the facts. We have so many girls that have been really good, so promising in chess. They hit puberty, they don't care anymore. And it's been really frustrating for a lot of coaches who are like, you have so much potential, you're so good. Like, you don't understand, being a female chess player, you're an anomaly. People love you. They want to promote you because they want this sense of equality. So it's a huge advantage if you can keep that. But a lot of girls, they just lose passion. And once a kid has lost that passion, has no interest, they're never going to be great. You just can't make it happen. You cannot drag your kid to greatness. I say there has to be some sort of internal fire there. Okay, so peers, like there are a lot of false readings with that. Then I got in high school and some of my friends, it was really cool to be in bands. So I've never had any musical interest at all. There's actually even a funnier one before the bands. But anyway, my buddy, he started playing guitar and I was like, oh man, and they were all hanging out in this. And all of a sudden, I wanted to be a drummer player. And I told my mom that. She's like, oh, we'll see. Thank God she didn't entertain it. But I thought I was going to be a professional drummer player because everybody else was. Okay, then this is even better. This was like the worst passion ever. I joined the bell choir in our church. Did I have any interest in bells in the choir? Absolutely not. There were a few cute girls in the church bell choir. And actually, they were in the church choir too. And so I joined the bell choir for that reason. And I was super passionate about bells while those girls were in the choir. And then when they quit, it was like, what am I doing? I even tried to get my mom. I'm like, hey, I think I want to join the regular singing choir too. She's like, why? She had no clue. Was I passionate about singing? Absolutely not. I had no talent, no interest. I was doing it because there were girls. So that was a false reading. I mean, imagine if my mom had jumped onto all these passions and tried to promote him and got me classes and was following my passions. But really, I was following my peers. This was peer pressure. This wasn't some sort of internal passion. Okay, and we'll talk a minute how to discover like a deeper passion in just a second. The other false reading is play. Everybody likes to play. And when I was younger, they said, and they probably still say it, if you can figure out something that you love to do all the time, then you'll never have to work a day in your life. And so that's what you're supposed to pick your career on. That's really not the way the world works. Otherwise, everybody would be like a video game programmer or just a video game player. I remember that we heard that you could actually just be a tester. You just play video games, you just test them out, and everybody's like, that is the job. And so you have all these kids who they play video games all day long, and they imagine that that's going to happen for them, that they're actually going to get paid to play video games all day long. That's a false passion. Everybody loves play. Play is not necessarily work. For most people, it's not work. The people who get to play for a living are one in a million. We're looking for careers, professions. So please don't get caught up in that. And that'll happen a lot of times with games, sports. Your kid thinks that they want to be a professional soccer player. It's your really job as a parent to say, there's really not a future in that. I know that that's wrong thinking in the world. You're supposed to just follow your kids' passions wherever they lead and always be supportive. If my kid's like, hey, my goal is to be a professional soccer player, it's like, sorry, start when you're 18, but not on my watch. Because there's no future there for you. Even if you make it to the pros, professional soccer players don't get paid that well. And it's a short career, and it's all based on your physical skills. So your body's going to wear out. That career path is going to die out. You end up being a coach, not making a lot of money. I'm not saying it's like wrong. If that is really like my kids' end all be all, that's all they can think, maybe. But that's certainly not something I'm going to pick for them. And I know that they're passionate because it's fun, but fun changes over time. You can't follow that all the time. Fun is definitely not a good gauge. I used to love playing video games. I don't necessarily like a lot of video games anymore. Fun will change over time. That's not a passion. So just be aware of that's a false reading. And all kids will get into that, although they want to be famous BMX bike riders or something like that. That's a false passion that they're just excited about because it's fun. Now, I actually know somebody who's training their kid up to be a professional BMX bike rider. It makes sense. It's actually a cousin of mine. Through marriage, he lives out in LA. He has a bike shop, and he's training. His kids are around professional BMX bike riders all the time. They have a BMX bike shop. So this is a family culture, a family business, and the kid has already made it into semi-pros. He's amazing. So that makes sense because it fits with their family. He's got access to all those professionals. But if it's just some random kid who at 12 years old enjoys bike riding, I wouldn't necessarily encourage that. I'd say, hey, go have fun bike riding. Make it be a hobby. That's fun. But that's not your career path we're picking. Okay, so what is a passion? How do you find a passion? Well, like I said, some of it can be a family culture. You can create your passion a lot of times by picking it for your kids, just by valuing it for your family. Kids will follow. They are impressionable. And that's why peers have such an impact on their kids, but so does family. And as homeschoolers, we become the peers. So the older siblings, the younger ones look up to them. They want to follow in their footsteps. So we can pick a passion. But the other thing is what would your kid do? What are they willing to struggle for? What are they willing to What passions do they have that endure the test of time? They don't change every year. They have them before puberty. They have them after puberty. For me, that was art. I don't know if that passion was picked for me or not. I know that at 5 years old, I drew this picture and it was pretty good. And a lot of people commented and it was the best in the class. And maybe my peers picked it for me, but I became the artist of the class and that kind of became an identity for me. But I also loved it. I love to draw. It's something that I did before and during and after school that I just love to do it. And today I'm a professional artist. I actually got a late start in that profession because of my peers. Because once I got into middle school, it wasn't very popular. They said you couldn't make any money in art, which is actually kind of true almost. And so that passion died away. But I still love doing it. So this is Dino Hunt. This is probably my most recent book I illustrated. I could have been a lot better if I would have continued with my passion. Unfortunately, from probably about 16 to 26, 10 years in there, I didn't do almost any drawing. I was just too busy with other career paths and stuff. But it's a passion that's persisted, and I go back and I picked up where I left off, and I was able to cover a lot of ground because it's a deep-seated passion that I really like. I love illustration. I love writing. So even if I don't get paid, I like to do it. Okay, and so that's what you're looking for in your kids. You're looking for something that suits their gender. We don't want to put them into a gender hole or pigeonhole them because there are exceptions to the rule. But you want to be really careful picking a gender before a gendered passion, let's say, before puberty, because a lot of times, like, girls love wrestling and stuff like that, maybe, and they're just like the boys. You think, oh, she's just like the boys. She's competing with them and stuff, and then she hits puberty and suddenly she doesn't care about it. And that hormones do affect our passions for sure. So you want to be really careful because you can set your daughters up for failure. I don't know if I did that with coding. Luckily, I kind of backed off of it when I realized, okay, this just isn't working. My daughter's just not really passionate. We've tried it a few times. She's really passionate about art. I'll keep promoting that. Like that's an easy avenue. I don't have to tell her or make her do it. I don't have to reward her for it. Something she wants to do on her own. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is they may have a bend that you do notice. Maybe it is art. Every little kid wants to be an artist, so you have to be careful with that, but see if it persists. But maybe they're really into hunting, or they're really into animals. Maybe they're really into building things. Like my son Colton, for whatever reason, really loved to build things. He just has that bend. So we're tying that into the family business. We're teaching him how to build things online, like 3D coding, and you can do architecture online and with different programs. So we're trying to tie that into the family business, but we recognize, like, for whatever reason, he has a bent to build things. And then, of course, the final consideration is the family business. It is so powerful if you can develop a family business. Maybe you don't have that now, but if you develop that mindset, like, a family trait is super powerful. We're going to talk about that, and not in the next book, Character, but in the next book called Power. And it talks about how some of these powerful families, like the Rothschilds, how they train up these bankers, and they become the elite bankers in the world, one of the most powerful banking families in the world, and it's a family business. Every kid who's born, they're not looking for it's changed over the years, but in the beginning, the patriarch, the Rothschild patriarch, all 5 of his sons, he knew they were going to be bankers. He wasn't waiting until they were 6 or 7 and following their passions, and one's going to be an artist. And if every kid has a different passion in the family, and they're not a part of the family business, it becomes very hard because you're going in all these different directions, and the parent needs to get on board with the passion too. But I mean, pretty much every Rothschild knew back in the day that they were going to be a banker, and so they were at a very young age calculating things at 3 years old. Who could compete with that? That mentality, that mindset, that family business. So that's what we're trying to do. It's not always perfect. Sometimes the kid really doesn't want to do the family business, but you'd be surprised how often kids naturally will follow in their father's footsteps or their mother's footsteps if they're raised in the home. When you put your kid in public school, it's a crapshoot. It ends up being whoever their peers are. And most of the times they don't pick their peers. Believe it or not, they're not really picking their peers, especially in high school. They end up getting kind of pigeonholed into social groups. And a lot of the times it's kind of this hierarchy of popularity. And a lot of times that the hierarchy of popularity it has to do with wealth and popularity. And a lot of that is, popularity is a lot of times how your kid looks. So if your daughter's really pretty, she could probably be really popular. If your son's really tall and he plays basketball, he's going to be really popular. And then what happens to your kids is they fit somewhere in there, and then that's their peer group. And all of a sudden your kid's peer group he didn't really pick it, but these are his friends, and now they're punk rock banders, and they think they're going to be the next Metallica or something, and it's dangerous. But as homeschoolers, we have a lot more sway over our kids and their passions. All of my kids, almost all of them, want to be artists. Again, it's not something that I think was born into them, but they see that their dad does that. My oldest daughter also wants to be an author. I don't think that that's something that she was born with. I think she sees her dad writing books. It comes natural that she wants to follow in those footsteps. That is the natural order. That was the natural order for thousands and thousands of years, for pretty much all of recorded history. It just made sense that you'd follow in your parents' footsteps until just recently. And now kids they're not necessarily following their passions. A lot of them are confused. A lot of them flip through careers. It's not an ingrained passion, I think, that we're born with for the most part. Okay, before I start rambling, I just want to cut it off. That's just some discussion. These are things to think about. This is not a formula. Raising children for greatness. So many parents contact me and they want like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and they want me to pick a passion for their kids or something like that. It's like this is not a formula. There's no formula for greatness. We have strategies, we have concepts, in other words, like, this is strategic. We have to use wisdom to think this through, and you're going to have to try things out. There's not a perfect path forward, but all of these things that we discussed today are things that you should be considering for your kids. Like, does this passion fit our family? Is this passion something that they have a natural bend to? Is this passion something that there is a career for down the road? Is this passion something that they suddenly discovered because they met a kid at church who also likes it and now they want to do it? That happened to my daughter too with the choir thing. Some of her friends were in the choir, the church choir, and all of a sudden she's like, I want to be in the choir. It's like, you don't even sing normally during church. I always have to tell you to sing. And now you want to be in the choir, and you're gonna invest time in singing, in perfecting that skill when you didn't really have a natural bent. We are not a musical family necessarily. We have maybe one kid that kind of interested in music, but we'll see. But anyway, just think of those things. This is not a perfect formula. This is an art. And like all art, there are principles, there are practices, best practices, but there is no perfect ABC. It does take some wisdom and some talent, some thought. Okay, I'm done. I don't want to ramble. I'll just repeat the same thing over and over and over. We'll see you guys next week. Remember, if you guys have questions, ask them. The questions are always the priority. You have a question, I'll answer that one, next week. So thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you later.